This lens is beautiful. It's just very comfortable, very unassuming, and I get very breathtaking images with it. This is the Light Lens Lab SPII. It is a 50mm lens, f2, and it's been pulled from the Cooke cinema lens from the 1940s, the Speed Panchro II series lenses. Now those were designed for super 35mm film. Light Lens Lab has pulled the coverage to make sure it covers full frame, which is amazing. Right now, Light Lens Lab only has an M mount. I hear rumor that they're going to be constructing a PL mount eventually. I shoot on the Sony FX6, that's what we're looking at right now, as well as I have the Sony A1. I got a little $18 adapter on Amazon. Look how tiny that is. This is a breath of fresh air. It makes it so nice to have as an everyday carry. It's just compact and feels good. The lens has a nice bit of heft to it. It's completely made of brass, but it's very balanced with the Sony A1. This feels great. So I can imagine with any of the mirrorless cameras, it'll be nice and balanced, let alone a Leica, which I'm sure it's a perfect fit for. The iris has nice clicks in half-stop increments. You can feel the bearing click firmly into place, but it's not difficult to maneuver through your iris settings. The focus throw is nice and smooth. It's about 180 degrees. This lens focuses down to 0.7 meters, and that is pretty typical for 50mm lenses, though I personally wish I could get it a little bit more. Now I understand that's a little bit of a caveat. I am a mirrorless shooter. I am not utilizing the rangefinder system, and the whole point of the 0.7 meter close focusing is because the focus patch on the rangefinder only works to 0.7 meters. So why would you design something that would focus closer anyway? It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. You see these two small screws? That is for your focusing tab, and they included two different types of focusing tab. There's a straight pin and a two-pronged focusing tab. They both feel great, and I'm sure they're perfect for the rangefinder camera, the Leica M mount cameras. But for me, it gets in the way, especially when I wrap this with a follow focus gear. The bump gets in the way, so I just took the whole thing off. I would love to actually have the focusing tab on if I had the opportunity to shoot on a Leica. Maybe one day, and I'll do another video if someone gets me a Leica that I can use this lens on. Throw me an M11, that'd be perfect. Blooming and chromatic aberration is typically thought of as a negative, right? But the way this pulls the light across on these high contrast scenes is very pleasing, I find personally. And it's very interesting. I haven't seen a whole lot of green magenta chromatic aberration that I've seen on other lenses like the Sony Nifty 50. It's a fine lens and all, definitely suffers from chromatic aberration. Or even my Zeiss macro planar series lenses. It's got some green and magenta chromatic aberration pretty intensely, particularly wide open. It kind of goes away as you stop down, but you know, that's another video. You'll get this blue cast, this blue ghosting on particularly heavy backlit subjects, and it looks really interesting. It's very unique. I haven't shot with any other lens that looks like this. The blooming that happens as well as the light pulls across those high contrast edges is nothing to compare to the Tiffin Black Pro Mist or their satin filters. I love those, but they're so hard to control. And this, I mean, the lens, if something blooms too much, really all I have to do is rack down the aperture a little bit. Maybe I'll go from f2 to f2.8, and the blooming pulls back a little bit too, so I can control that texturing very easily. It's been very fun to work with creatively in those moments. The look is very special. Wide open, it's a softer image, but it still has beautiful texture. I can pick out fine details in fabric, little strands of hair, it's all there, but the contrast of the image has now been flattened a little bit, which is beautiful for video work and photography. I feel like I can pull just a little bit more out of the image. Now, comparing f2 to f4 and f8, you can definitely see how this lens punches with extra micro contrast as you rack down into your aperture range. It has very heavy vignetting as you're at f2 that goes away by about f4. But I think that vignetting is very beautiful for isolating your subjects, and the way that it pulls you into the center of the frame really lends itself to the compositions that at least I've been capturing. Now let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, bokeh. I got it behind me. I got in all these photos. This lens does bokeh very, very nicely. You get these hard rings on the exterior of the bokeh balls, but it's most notable at f2 and starts to go away as you go down to f2.8 and f4. Those hard edges soften out, but it gives you this grit to the background without getting too busy, without getting too messy. It's just a very beautiful bokeh. I think Ted from The Art of Photography called it painterly, and I would have to agree. The whole image feels more like a painting than it does a typical still picture. It's so up my alley. I love this for photography and discrete video work. On the A1 here, this is a perfect combination. I can easily grab my focus and do my pulls the way that I want. The iris is easy to get to. It's nice and discreet. It's very compact and it's very unassuming. It's exactly what I want for this sort of a setup. I can get really intimate moments without really making a whole big scene. Whereas when I pull out my FX6, it's a production. Without a doubt, people notice it right away. And you know, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's not so good. When I'm trying to be discreetly filming in a public environment, this is my setup. Now when I throw it on my FX6, it's way too close to the body. It's uncomfortable to be able to get my hand on the focus. And now fortunately I have a Zacuto follow focus, and it pulls my hand forward a little bit to make minute adjustments fairly easily, but the iris is difficult to get to. Obviously it's clicked, you know, this is designed for a rangefinder camera. It's not designed for my video rig. So the Light Lens Lab SPII is a really amazing lens. I've loved shooting with it for both photography and for video for the past week. It's been a really pleasurable experience, and I expect that it's gonna stay on my camera for many, many years to come. Can I compare it to the actual Cooke Speed Panchro II lens? No, I've never shot on a Cooke lens. Is it an amazing lens with beautiful character and a defining look and feel? Yeah. Do I enjoy shooting on it? Absolutely. I think it's a really awesome experience, and I can't wait to bring it on future productions. So if you're interested in this lens, I'd say go for it, man. It's been a joy to work with, and if you've got a little bit of money laying around and you want that Cooke look for not the Cooke price tag, I like it.